Welcome to Dice and Mind, a podcast hosted by Brad Brown and Jason Kaufman to explore the intersection of life, games, science, music, philosophy, and creativity through interviews with leading creatives. All are welcome in this space.
You are more apt to, these days, just because of the nature of my office area, seeing it hasn't been used lately. So it's a bit messy of periodically sending me pictures of your bookshelf. Although those are going to be put away soon because you're having your office redone.
In fact, this morning of the recording, we had the vendor walkthrough.
Oh,
And
you
so we
did?
have a timeline now for when it's going to be done, and it's going to be done, they're starting in mid-January.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
soon. Relatively soon on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I did take a picture because I had to add a
Ooh,
shelf.
yeah.
Oh, no, I sent it to you,
Oh,
remember?
okay, this is the one I've seen. Good.
Yes, I
Looks
sent it to
good.
you because I had to
Oh, I
add
know where you're going.
I had to add a shelf
Yes.
because I have some other subject matter. I have some other
Hello, my name is
subjects
Brad, and I have a problem.
problem. And my
Yeah.
problem is traveler books. And I had to add a shelf because there is and
Oh,
I will put the picture out on Twitter, X, and Blue
yeah.
Sky,
Yeah.
and because we have branched out.
Yep.
Um I have a good three
Oh my,
what
it's
is
so we've been talking about Traveler earnestly for more than a year now, I think. And I
oh
knew you'd picked up
yeah,
a few books, but when you sent me the photo, your shelf porn,
yeah.
I I did not at all appreciate. I mean, there are so many books.
Oh, and this, I'm telling you, I said this with our guest, who we will talk about in one moment,
Yeah.
how we did not find that game
Right.
before any others. No
Like
disrespect
as
to any,
kids.
as kids,
Yeah.
or even before we started gaming. If we had found that,
Hmm.
I am sure, if we had found that even in the mid 90s, I am sure we would not have gotten married.
Well, not to one another.
No, I'm
Yeah.
sure we would not have. I'm
I
sure.
or I mean there would have been a lot of like being fired and dropping out of grad school,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
I don't know how we did, I don't, but again, like how is it that you and I, up until me getting back into RPGs in 2016,
Hmm.
how, which, oh my God, it's like 11, 8 years now. This has been that's an interesting retrospective for another time. How is it you and I never talked about this?
I know.
Right. So I
And
mean
the
that's part of it.
and the depth. I mean, when I look at
Oh my
some of the
God.
science and stuff behind it, and
Oh,
you go to like to the Facebook Traveler group or the subreddit for Traveler, and you see some of the discussions, the depth of discussions that they have about sublight travel
hmm
or
hmm
faster than light travel and how long it takes. Or if you go out to the traveler map and you look at the known galaxy and you look at how much of the galaxy is actually mapped in the traveler universe and how much
Oh,
of it
it's just
isn't.
ridiculous.
And
This is geekery at a whole other level.
it is. But what even got me more fascinated and what prompted us
Yeah.
to bring our guest
Yes.
Matthew Sprange back
Yes.
on originally
A couple years ago.
a couple of years ago
Hmm.
was the first time we saw his State of the Mongoose
Yep.
message that he
Yep.
posted.
Yeah, you brought that to my attention and we were both blown away.
Both blown away by it, and he came on and talked about it with us
Hmm.
at the end of 2023,
Yep.
and um, they have had a heck of a 2024.
Oh,
Um, and they just
yeah.
recently, within, as this comes out in early December of 2024, they just within the past month came out with their 2024 State of the Mongoose. A
Hmm.
lot to talk about in that one. If you haven't seen it, it'll be in the show
And
note.
and to just to reiterate, and we'll talk about this again, I'm sure, or later maybe, but what attracts us is not the games. The reason we were so glad
Yes.
to have Matthew back and to simply read the state of the Mongoose 2024 is why we asked him 2 years ago to join us because of the business ethics behind it. That
Yes.
so we're geeking out on the games and we're going to keep going, but we're coming back to business ethics.
Yeah, I mean, just and he talks about this, and if
Yeah.
you listen to him, if you listen to Matthew talk, if you go back and listen to his original episode, it's interesting that that um just a little behind the scenes. We've noticed that a lot of our earlier episodes, the number of downloads has really ramped up. Just as a
Yeah.
little sidebar, and we thank
Mu-
everyone for that.
Like our wives would tell you, it takes time, but you get used to us.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that might be the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
Um, but Matthew's original episode with
Hmm.
us, just really resonated with people.
We're not
Um,
going to tell you how like embarrassingly low our listening numbers are, but his was the
no,
least embarrassingly low,
yes, yes,
which is but like significantly so.
yeah. His
Yeah.
episode really resonated with people, and um, and most of the episode wasn't talking about the games themselves. It was talking about the story of Mongoose Publishing, the business itself, and what they do, what he does, and what his team does. And that's what we're going to talk about today with him. What they've done this year,
Yep.
the acquisitions they've
Yeah.
made,
What they haven't done this year.
what they haven't done, and he's
Right.
very transparent
Yep.
about it. He and his team.
Yep. What it's like
Um,
for that team. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So, um, I mean, just always a stand-up, fascinating guy,
Yeah.
as transparent as anyone you will ever meet out
It
there.
it really shows you what a good business can do and be like and how it can be led and good in multiple terms, right? Multiple ways of using that word. Matthew Sprange is co-founder and managing director of Mongoose Publishing, where he has been running the company for more than 2 decades. A game designer who has designed, authored, or edited more than 50 game products, Matthew also has magazine credits in Signs and Portents and several other popular publications.
Matthew, thanks so much for joining us. We need to have you here more often, but at a minimum, it's our yearly um, State of the Mongoose episode with Matthew, and it seems to be that it comes right around the time you and the team issue the yearly update. I love them because you are so open book with what's going on, and the team, you and the team have been extraordinarily busy. I know because I had to buy a new bookshelf. I think I sent you the picture. I have this big bookshelf now with my um my collection, my traveler collection and everything on it. And Jason knows it because we haven't had time to game, but
That's next on the list. We've been
yeah, but
we've been
every time
planning. Yeah.
we've been planning.
But
Um
if we're not playing anything right now, but
yeah, yeah.
it's very yeah, it's coming. Yeah.
But so lots of news. I don't want to just focus on any one game, but let's be honest, the big news this year has been some acquisitions from with Mongoose. What's with Traveler? How did that all play out, if you don't mind?
That's quite a story. Yeah, so we were talking to Mr. Miller about the future of Traveller, and he had already stated that in the event of the inevitable that Traveller would be simply passed over to us. So I had a little think about that, and as I mentioned in State of the Mongoose,
Mm.
I'm very interested in making sure that the company is secure as possible because we've got a lot of people here who rely on it for their livelihoods.
Mm.
So I went back to Mark and said, "Well, you've said this, very grateful for that. How would it be if we gave you some monies and you could like pass over Traveller a bit sooner?" And he had to think about that, and in the end decided, yes, it's probably the right time to do it.
Wonderful.
just having that all together. I know the community itself was, you know,
Probably
I
elated.
think it was elated just because there's been there's obviously there's different, Traveler has had, you know,
Well, it's got
different,
history,
yeah,
and you got these threads. I know, especially as someone who is just starting to get into Traveler, um, I can barely keep up with the updates of what's coming out. Between in a good way, between the RPG material, between the fiction, um, the updates that seem constant on social media, which is just really cool because it seems there's always something going on. But backing off for just a sec, or backing up for just a sec, Brad and I have been talking intermittently about our first chat with you, which was almost a year and a half ago, because of what you and your team, your company are doing with your business model, right, writ large. And then to read the State of Mongoose update just maybe a week ago, when I saw it, it's just like Brad said, there's so much integrity there, and it's so transparent. And to see what you're all doing on the back end of things, right? Of how a company like yours works, and what's happening and what's not happening to get it where you all want it to go. Um, it's kind of to us a shining star in the industry because we know in talking to people that there are others who are not going towards such a co-op or shared model, but who would clearly like to do more of what you're all doing. But but for whatever reasons that are understandable, they're not sharing that, right? They're not openly talking about it. They're just doing their thing and probably doing it well in the background. But you all are sharing this journey with the fan base. And it's just fascinating to see how it's all evolving for you. Um, and I guess that's not really a question, just an observation, but it's what continues, honestly, almost more than even the wonderful games, even though that portfolio is expanding rapidly, of what you're all doing as a company, as a business, especially these days, because it's just, again, it seems like such a positive thing to
it
see that
is.
right now in the world, you all can do something like this with intentionality, own the hiccups along the way, recognize opportunity along the way, but still be very intentional and very methodical along. I mean, that's like, I get a kick out of the fact that we still get the kitchen updates, right? Like, that's just deeply honest because let's face it,
Yeah.
people care.
It's yeah, I mean, we only started talking about this, what, last year, year before-ish, but we've been doing it for a few years. We didn't say anything about it, partly because I got a bit British over it. Um, Especially after the pandemic, we were aware that there was a whole bunch of people out there that weren't doing so well. But if you were working here, you probably were. As I say, there's get a bit British over it. You don't want to talk about your successes, and you don't necessarily go with the idea that people who produce games for a living, doing something they enjoy, should also be paid well enough that they can afford their own places to live. So there was an element of us having to get over that and actually start talking about it. But we figured that there'll be at least some gamers out there that would appreciate the idea that the people who produce their games aren't scratching around trying to make ends meet.
Yeah, I mean, but along with that, like you said, you talked about this year just, just because of some of the financial outlay you took in making some of those acquisitions, you took a couple steps back with some of the stuff that you were working on, just to make the long-term commitment, the foundation with Traveler. Um, what do you think was the kind of the in making that acquisition, um, you know,
Well, I'm gonna interrupt with this with
okay.
it because I think I know where you're going with this. And
No,
because
that's okay. That's okay.
you and I have been talking about this, and I think
That's okay. Sometimes Jason does this because sometimes I get a little long-winded, ironically, versus,
That's
yeah,
cool.
pot kettle. I mean,
yeah.
but one of the things that certainly I think intrigues both of us, certainly it does me, is to Brad's point, with the acquisitions and some of those other major, perhaps not pivots, but major pivots, right? Real expansions of the business potentially. There's a cost factor, there's a person power factor, all of this. It's not just you seemingly making the decision in solitary, of course. It's and
Yes.
you write about you wrote about how the team writ large addressed some of this. I mean, how does one openly communicate that with a company full of people and assuage what must be some pretty legitimate anxieties about taking on some of that?
Well, to answer the last point first, if you're giving people all the information and giving them the responsibility and authority to make the decisions, the anxiety does tend to go because they're in
Nice.
control of their own destiny. That's kind of like the whole point of it.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, the way most small businesses work, you've got one person or two people owning and running everything, and they act as dictators, saying, "I've got this great idea. Let's do this. Whoops, it
Yeah.
didn't work. We're going to fire a couple of people. Let's try this other great idea." And what I found is the way we work, if I come up with the great idea, I'll present it to everyone.
Hmm.
And they'll either say yes or they'll say no. If I think it's a really good idea, then I'll go away, patch up the idea and present it again, and maybe it gets through that time. But what that does is force you to actually think about what you're doing. The people you're talking to can act as your conscience and
Hmm.
stop you second guessing yourself. It just provides another barrier. You're not surrounding yourself with yes men. I mean, not to talk politics for a moment. This was the problem we had in our last government. They didn't have anyone in the cabinet that wasn't loyal to the leader, so you had no one saying no. So bad ideas come out.
Yeah, we get it right now. We get it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we're yeah.
We're in
Mhm.
violent agreement, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why they're not in government anymore. But the same thing happens in businesses. But given a relatively successful business, when the boss gets something wrong, it's always tends to be the staff that
Yeah.
suffer because of it.
That's right.
But let's try and change that. We've got a very flat structure here.
Hmm.
I mean, in theory, um, I'm on I'm in the top spot and everyone else is below. In practice, it doesn't really work out that way because I'm trying to make myself answer to them as much as possible.
Hmm.
The example that I always use is the Catcher in the Rye. If you're
Hmm.
familiar with the story, so you got the children running through the rye fields, and you got the guy by the cliff stopping them running off. Yeah, that's me. I'm there to stop them running off.
That's good
Um,
though. That paints a picture. Yeah.
I mean, they're free to fall over, bruise their shins, make the odd
Hmm.
mistakes. As long as they don't trash the company while they're doing it, then it's a learning process. And the whole point is setting them up to. I'm very conscious they're just over there while I'm talking about this.
Oh, I lo love to. Yeah, it would be fascinating to watch all of them at the same time, but we won't do that to you. We're not video.
Yeah, I mean, so the whole point is setting them up, getting them to stop thinking like employees, thinking like employers. So
Yeah.
when the time comes, they can run the company and be confident they can do so.
Yeah.
I mean, they can already do a lot. It's just getting the rest done.
Yeah. I remember you saying very similar things about a year and a half ago when this was a we were earlier in the process. I wonder how is that going? As the one in charge, so to speak, how are you finding this far into that process? It's going like what are you learning along the way?
Good question. Um, you start thinking further ahead, like how are things going to work if I'm not here for a week, for a month, for a year,
Yeah.
wherever.
Right.
Um, so you start trying to think ahead and plot, well, how would they approach this? This is how I would do it. How do I communicate that across? Um, and the conclusion you rapidly reach is you cannot tell people everything you would ever do in every circumstance. So it's more about
Yeah.
a way of thinking rather than strict instructions. I mean, if you give a list of instructions about how to handle something, chances are when it's needed, it's going to be out of date anyway. So
Mhm.
you need people to be able to think and have the confidence to carry through on their actions and recognize when they made a mistake and backtrack. But if they're all talking to each other anyway, the bad ideas tend to get hammered out.
Yeah.
Do other leaders ever reach out to you at other organizations or anything like that and ask you questions about this model? Do they ever read, you know, do you ever get feedback from, whether it's other RPG companies or,
Just in
CEO
general,
leaders
yeah.
or even other business leaders?
Not from peers in the industry. I mean, we have had people approach us who are just starting out.
Hmm.
And whilst it is an ideal, that's possibly not the best time to go forward with something like this. There's too much that can go wrong when you're first starting out.
Yeah.
However, I am quite evangelical about it when I'm talking to similar games companies
Yeah.
of our size, and I have recognised some problems why not everyone does it. I mean, first you have to make the decision that you don't want the big mansion, the six cars, the yacht, the island. Never really wanted any of those things. But if you do, then it's going to come out of the work of your staff. If you've got children, you're going to want to pass things on to them, which I think is the worst idea in the world if they're not involved in the business in the first place. But
Mhm.
I don't know. It's so there are legitimate barriers as to why people
Yeah.
wouldn't follow through. I mean, I think they're wrong, but
Hmm.
that's not me to say.
Go ahead,
Greed,
Rick.
greed can, I mean, greed, and I don't mean this as but greed can be a stiff motivator
I mean,
sometimes, and that
there
can get
is
in the
a
way,
bit of there's a bit of a global business model, if you will, right? I
Hmm.
mean, especially for companies which are publicly traded, ensconced into ethos as well as law of what they're after, and it's not necessarily the benefit of their workers, of their staff, of their people.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. I mean,
Hmm.
this is the problem when you see companies like let's take a malign one, Games Workshop. When they make decisions to X, Y, and Z, and they say, "Oh, this is really evil. They're hurting their independent retailers. They're hurting their staff. Why are they so bad at it?" They're
Yeah.
legally obliged to do
Right.
that. If they don't do that, then they can get sued by their own shareholders.
Hmm.
And this is a massive problem because shareholders tend to want the company be doing well in the next 3 months, not the next 3 years or the next 30 years.
Right.
It is a very deep problem, one that employee ownership does solve. Because I mean, even if the greed kicks
Hmm.
in there, at least it's the workers themselves that are getting the benefit. And if they're honking off customers while they do it, well, that's what the free market's for.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Hmm. This is just my ignorance, Brad. Maybe you know more about this than I do. I don't know anything. I'm curious. I mean, obviously, Matthew, you're selling globally, and you certainly have a huge market here in the States. But I'm curious if running a business such as yours, just all of this, is that any different in Britain than it would be here, to your knowledge? Are there whether it's legal or just cultural, are there differences you note or aware of that I guess it's just sheer ignorance on my part. Is this more feasible where you are? Is it pretty much the landscape is the same? Are the implications the same? I mean, because you are
Well,
selling all over.
yeah, I mean, it's America's a bit different. I mean, in some areas, it's progressed far more along the lines of employee ownership than Britain or
Okay.
anywhere else in Europe has. But
Hmm.
at the same time, that does vary state by state.
Right. Right.
So you might, I don't know all the ins and outs of employee
Hmm.
ownership in the US. I know it does happen. We have dealt with companies that are owned by their employees before in the US. Um, but mechanically, at least on the legal side of things, where I think you will find the differences, whatever they may be, is the encouragement different governments give to
Hmm.
persuade
Yeah.
business owners to pass the business on to their employees, because there's different ways you can do it.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, the traditional way is the management buyout, which normally means there's a small group of employees who all club together, take out a massive loan, immediately put a millstone around business's neck, but it's theirs, and they try and fight their way through the ban. That doesn't sound like a very good way of doing it to me. Um, so there's going to be different mechanisms, but the idea is that you simply give the business, or at least the majority of the business, to the employees. And then it's down to individual governments to give various tax benefits for doing
Mhm.
so. And it's a way for a business owner to try and, claw money back out of the business to compensate them for it. I've never been really worried about that side of things,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
other people will be. Um, and it's not always listed clearly about what's possible on governments and tax office websites, so you do need to dig around. I mean, I've got some idea at the moment of what it's going to look like in terms of a legal structure,
Yeah.
but I'm not certain.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
these laws do change a lot, so you need to
Yeah.
keep pace with it as well. I mean, I've got in place at the moment, if something was to happen to me like 5 minutes after we finish this interview, I do have a will. The staff all know where that will is, and everything just gets divided
Wow.
up between them equally, which is a very bad way of doing it, because it's just going to lead them to the same problems I face, but
Right.
just a little further down the track. So what needs to happen is a legal structure needs to be set up that can just like segue into it. And it needs to be something where people aren't locked into the company. If they want to leave, they can.
Right.
And you
Right.
can bring other people into it. So the idea is it becomes a perpetual entity. So it just carries on going.
Wow. It, I'm curious. This is a totally unfair question, which we like, so we'll ask. Like a year from a year from now, give or take, right? If all were to go to plan, and obviously it's not, that's not life, that's not business, that's not the world we live in. But a year from now, if all were to go to plan, where would you like to see Mongoose, given what you're doing?
Things tend to move slowly. I mean, a
Mhm.
year from now, um, we will have, if all goes well, the building we're in at the moment, we would have taken possession of our war chest, which has taken a little bit of a beating over the past year for obvious reasons. That would
Oh,
be topped back up again. Um, and the staff members here will either be in their own homes, or if they're already in their own homes, be a sizable way to paying off their mortgages. And if we
wow.
don't do that next year, we'll do it the next.
Wow.
That's one of the things we strongly encourage here. For God's sake, stop paying people rent. It's
Oh, it's
stupidly high at the
awful.
moment.
Yeah.
Help them get their deposits together. We have a financial advisor on tap who comes and sorts best mortgage out for them. And once the mortgage is
Wow.
done,
Yeah.
we don't want them locked into it for 30 odd years. We want them paid off in 5 years or 10 years. Thank you very much. I've just been given a coffee because I've said nice things.
That's great.
What are you most excited about product wise coming up um over the next year? I know you've got stuff on the docket for Traveler 2300, you've got paranoia stuff, you've
So
got
cool.
um classic Traveler stuff coming out, you've got, you know,
There's a lot of stuff.
Traveler, you know,
You
I,
may not have noticed, Brad has a thing for Traveler.
yeah. Well, I've we've talked, you and I have talked about
Understandably so.
paranoia. There's just, I mean, for those that don't know, you have a publishing schedule out right there. There's a link right on the front there
Yeah, it's very cool.
on the website, so people can check and see what progress is as to where it is in terms of editing,
Yeah,
layout, publishing, if the PDF is out,
so
if the
cool.
book is out.
Hmm.
Um, I know your team is hard at work, multiple product lines. Um, you know, you know, So maybe I shouldn't be asking this just because the team is there potentially listening, but what do you what are you and the team excited about coming out in 2025?
Another big question. I mean, you guys tend to get dragged to the larger products. So the first one you're going to see is the Singularity campaign from Chris Griffin, which is the next mega epic campaign for a traveler in the lines of Pirates of Dranax. You should see that popping up. Do you know, maybe only 3 months or so, 3 or 4 months before that starts appearing. Around summer, all going well. We got Pioneer coming, which is our near future, more realistic exploration of the solar system, just like 10, 15, 20 years in our future.
Yes, please.
The idea being that your players, your pioneers, will be the first to build a moon base, the first to set on Mars, the first to mine an asteroid, and where the main adversary, there isn't a combat chapter in the book. The main adversary is the environment.
It's a good thing you didn't lead with this a little while ago, because this is all I would have talked about.
But that's going to be its own core rulebook. What we're starting to look at now is what we call traveler adjacent games. So you pick up Pioneer, you already know how to play it. There's just going to be a few tweaks here and there. I mean, it doesn't use high guard to build the ships. It's pointless for the kind of spacecraft we have at the moment. And the skills are rejigged a little bit, and there's just little tweaks here and there, but it's still basically Traveller. So we've looked at carrying that across. I mean, with 2300, we say use the Traveller core rulebook. And the reason we did that is because we didn't want a 400-page rulebook, but I'm wondering now whether we should have made 2300 its own core rulebook. And if we revisit that game, that's probably what we'll do. But we got two other traveler adjacent games in the works. At best, you might see one at the tail end of next year. I think they're for 2026, though.
Wow. And ballpark, how many people are working on all of this? Taken as one?
Yeah, full time we've got 5 people in the office. There's me, who's basically writer, editor. We got another writer, editor, and 3 graphic designers who do the art and the layout. On top of that, we have freelance writers and freelance artists.
That is a lot going on.
It is, but you got to remember, these are our full-time jobs. We're here for, at least 8 hours a day. So
sounds awful.
You can get a lot done. But here's the going back to what we were talking about. Here's the other thing: people are day-to-day. People are motivated.
Yeah, of course.
Firstly, because it's they're doing a job that doesn't suck. They're working on things that they can find a direct interest in. And at the end of the day, if all that fails, they know if they do a good job on a book and it sells well, they directly benefit from that at the end of the end of each month.
So cool.
And they're gorgeous. It's gorgeous material. So I like I think I mentioned this, I probably did it a year and a half ago, and I'll mention it now. I as someone who's come back to gaming, I cannot believe it took me as long as I did to find that game.
I don't know how we were not playing Traveller 20 years ago. 30 years ago. 30 years ago.
Let alone when we first came back.
So honestly, I haven't heard a word either of you have said since Matthew's described Pioneer. He had you at Pioneer. You had me at
Asteroid.
Moon base.
So
brilliant.
Hey, Matthew, thanks so much. We want to be cognizant of your time. I know,
really appreciate it,
because we're morning, your afternoon.
And I have to go to my day job now. I shouldn't say it like that. I love it, but still.
But it's been a while since we've had you on. We'd love to have you on much sooner next time, and find out how things have been going in 2025.
You'll be more than welcome.
Thank you.
And appreciate everything that you and the team have been doing.
Yeah. Thanks for
So
being a
we're
model for the rest of the industry.
yeah, the business model you all have, I
Yeah.
said it before and I'll say it again. I think is a model that transcends the gaming industry, and I think it's needed.
Not
Um,
just in the gaming industry.
yeah,
Yeah.
it transcends. It can be used in
Hmm.
multiple verticals here, especially here in the United States, especially these days.
Yeah.
So, thank you to you and your team for continuing to be a model for that, and we all appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you again, Matthew, for joining us. And we're going to have you back on again because of all the stuff that you have planned for 2025. I know that as soon as you started kind of briefly mentioning Pioneer,
It's been on my mind ever since.
yes, I know.
And I can't, like, daily I have looked for more information and there's nothing out there.
No, they are keeping a very tight ship there because there is nothing leaking out about that. And that is one game that you and I both we have we have talked about. I know we have talked about doing something like
Yeah, yeah.
homebrew.
I tried to develop something like that as a kid when I
Yeah,
was doing
Moonbase.
RPGs with D6, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and even Yukon 2061. Haha.
Yeah.
Or was it 2063? Whatever. Um, oh man, I so badly want to see, I mean, please, just Matthew, take my money. I
Yes.
want to see this. I don't care if I ever play it. I want to read it. I want to read it as lit. I probably really want to play it
Oh,
too.
we're gonna that's one that
You
I
know
think
for
we will play.
sure. Yeah.
I think to be honest with you, that will probably just from a time perspective, that will probably jump ahead and will probably be the first foray we have into
Oh
the
yeah.
Traveler
So
by far.
if there's another beta, like I'm watching, I want in.
Yeah.
We will make the time.
Yeah. If they do
Yeah.
any sort, I don't know if they'll do a Kickstarter or backer kit or anything like that, but if they end up doing
Again,
it,
I mean,
we're in.
just take my money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, I as we wrap up, thank you again for that.
Yeah, very much.
Really do appreciate it. But um I don't know if you hear them at all,
It almost worked. We'll do the
but but
Brad's trying to play a loon from his phone
but I do hear the
and
loons calling, so
yeah, Zoom is
uh,
filtering quite well.
but
Still not working, but it's a
nah.
good thought with some. And I mean,
Well,
I mean, it's.
the loons are calling, so why don't we head over to the Loon Cafe
Let's do it.
and talk about what's on our desks and what's been on our minds from a gaming or book or any perspective.
You go first.
I will tell you, no, actually, I'll tell you book in a minute, but just
Okay.
from a tea perspective, um,
Ah, I like where
I
this is
have
going
to say
already.
that um, I have been on, um, as you know, and some of the people who don't see me know, I've been on a weight loss thing, and I've lost like a lot of weight in 2024. But
You are
um,
now a sexy son of a gun.
well, why, thank you. But and not uncomfortable with that at all. But I sometimes will deal with nausea here and there, and my
Hmm.
lifesaver has been
Oh,
um ginger peach
yeah, the Republic of Tea, right?
Republica tea, and I had to order my second tin
Oh, that's funny.
today. But I'll
Okay.
tell you what, at night, um, before I go to bed, because it's no caffeine,
Yep. Yep.
I will sit there, and it's holiday season for me, so I will put on um holiday instrumental, no vocal.
Yes. Oh no, F's, of course.
Holiday
Yeah.
instrumental. I don't need the vocal, and
Maybe
have my
some good
tea.
brass.
I will, but the problem for me is brass music will
You're too focused. You know what
I
you're
get
doing.
well, I will get emotional. That will generate some emotion and it'll
Yeah.
wire me.
Yeah. Fair.
So I will either do instrumental like guitar or potentially
Oh
like
yeah.
string orchestra,
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
string choir.
Beautiful.
Um, and we'll listen to that and that ginger peach or peppermint.
Yep. We drink a
Um,
lot of mint tea here. Hmm.
Mint tea
Hmm.
for me. Both of those.
Yeah.
I cannot remember the last time. I will be perfectly honest with you. Let me rephrase that. It was today. Um, the last time I had a coffee, but it was
Oh, every
Starbucks.
morning.
I
Yeah.
went with my daughter. She
Nice.
wanted Starbucks, but prior to today, probably been about 3 weeks since I had a cup of coffee. It's been purely tea.
Wow. Wow. Good for you.
And not because I just didn't want coffee. It's just that's been my thing. But that was my tea bit. From a
Nice.
books or
Nice.
whatever
Yeah.
perspective, on from your perspective, what's been new?
Well, actually, uh, it's more of a heads up on the tele.
Oh,
As this episode drops,
oh, I know
the
where you're
following
going.
day, Star Wars Skeleton Crew premieres. And I think we, like everyone else, agrees that Andor was exceptional. Andor isn't something I would normally watch as a type of show, but it was just so very well done. I'm thrilled that there is going to be a season two whenever that releases. I've watched all the other Star Wars shows that have come out, and honestly, after the first couple seasons of The Mandalorian, which I loved, um, they've all been pretty weak. Fun, beautifully done, had their moments, but they've all been pretty weak. This one, though, the ads totally have me. It looks like to me if you got Steven Spielberg in the 80s to run a show for Star Wars with 2024 tech and effects. That's what it looks like. Goonies in space. And so if it's half as good as the trailers they're dropping or the teasers they're dropping looks, I am all in. I am really, it just looks like a sheer amount of fun. And my thing, the whole Edge of the Empire thing, it looks like it could be more insight into what the B story of the galaxy looks like. So I'm actually really, really interested to watch this.
The only reason I'm going to watch it is because I'm a big Jude Law fan,
Okay.
and um, I find him to be a phenomenal actor.
Okay.
Um,
He's
I
the
think
only iffy part to me because it's like, why do they have this adult? But that's good.
uh,
That's good. That's
I
good for
I
you.
like him. I like him as an actor. Otherwise, I'll be honest with you. I've kind of just
You've soured. I know, and so
I've
have I.
soured. I've
So have I.
soured.
But this, and when they announced this, I thought, okay, dumbest idea ever for Star Wars. It's going to be another. They're not stinkers, but they're just not what they could be. But the more they've released in these teasers, the more impressed I've been. And okay, if they're showing the very best moments, so
Mhm.
be it, then that's going to be a bummer. But I don't think that's what's happening. So I'm gonna be a betting man for a change, and I'm gonna wager that this one is going to be good.
From a cinematic universe perspective, I look for news um mostly for Trek and Marvel.
Hmm.
Those are the
Hmm.
two. If I see or hear anything related to DC, great, which really nothing's coming out for that.
So
Star
dark.
Wars, Star Wars stuff comes out and then
See,
goes
I
away.
follow
Just,
Star Trek and Star Wars. Can't help
you
it.
know, Star Wars, the problem is that stuff comes out for Star Wars and then it gets canceled and then it comes up again. Now there's this new trilogy that they're talking about. Um, the director, I can't remember the name of the
Yeah, I
person.
know who you mean.
It's a good director, but then they're talking about it as a continuation trilogy, and I'm like, well, didn't they supposedly episode 9 was a wrap up,
So
you
to
know?
to paraphrase Master Yoda,
Yeah,
they must fix what has been broken.
yeah, I know,
And
but
I kind of, but I really, I kind of wonder, and I maybe, I don't know, Brad, maybe I'm being really unrealistic. And we are long overdue for a really good Star Wars talk anyways, but
yeah,
I, I, I wonder if this is going to be an attempt, if you will, to right the ship, right? Like where they're taking heavily, or at least are heavily inspired by, um, like the new Jedi Order stuff back in the 90s.
go
I don't
and
know.
push if they're going to push forward a couple decades.
Yep.
and start a new story, utilize Ray, bring Finn back, which
Well,
John
I mean, that
Boyega,
might be
yeah,
happening. It's one of those is going to be a Ray story.
I think John Boyega should come back. I
Oh
know
yeah.
that he's had a bad, you know, some bad experiences. I think they should bring him back.
Oh, 100%.
Um, I think if they do that, and if they want to have some Skywalker type elements to it, great.
Eh,
Um, if we go back, I've been watching some, I guess we'll just turn this into a little mini Star Wars rant. There's really nothing on my desk that is so important that we can't do
rant
this.
away.
Yeah. If you really think about it, the problem with, you know, I've been watching, they've been showing little tidbits, these little YouTube shorts of like Boba Fett. And I've
Okay.
been watching how they rolled Boba Fett out in the early 80s. And if you think about it, everyone went gaga over Boba Fett because of little clips in Empire Strikes Back, right?
Yep. Yep.
You'd have brought Boba Fett out the way they did now, everyone would have been up in arms because there was no backstory. We didn't know who he was, you know, um, you know, didn't really talk other than a couple words here and there. There was really nothing to him. Same thing with
Right.
Captain Phasma when she came out
Yeah.
in,
Right.
so I think from my perspective, you can fix the stories, you can fix the trilogy with books,
Yeah.
and instead of dinking around with some of the stuff they've been
Well,
dinking around
I
with,
mean,
they could,
there's certainly no shortage of books. I haven't
yeah,
read any in a while. I think
yeah.
I have to look. Oh, actually, the second to last one I read was I think it was the first like Golden Age Jedi book that came out. I'm blocking on the official stuff. Actually, the last one I read was um I didn't get into these for the longest time, but that now over the past couple of years, I read the Empire Strikes Back from a certain point of view.
Yes, I remember you
Right.
talking
Okay.
about this.
And actually I was thinking over winter break, like it might be nice if I don't know that the paperback's out yet. I'd like to read the Return of the Jedi from a certain point of view because it really like if you're in the mood for it's like 30 or 40 short stories, it ends up being it's so interesting, right? Um though that kind of thing, I'm with you, is just great. Like excellent storytelling, and you're not like trying to build
and
what isn't
stop
there.
and
Yeah.
stop playing hot potato with the franchise over there,
Yeah.
where they had JJ and then they brought in Ryan Johnson and then
Yeah.
JJ took it back over. That's what killed it. If they had
Please
kept,
stop screwing it up.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, just pick one person
Yep. Yep.
and let them run with it, George Lucas. And I
Yeah.
let's be honest with you. For all the complaints that people had about the prequels, what air quote fixed it? The Clone Wars the
Yeah.
Clone Wars
Right.
animated series
Right.
and the Rebels animated series. You put the
R-
prequels and those two things together, you
Yeah.
have a complete pre
Oh yeah. No,
New Hope
100%. Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
So stop messing around. You
Yeah.
can put together shows and stuff that can fix whatever people want to say went wrong with, you know,
Yep.
Kylo Ren
So,
and Snoke and the
so,
Emperor.
so thank you everybody for joining yet another episode of Two Grumpy Old Men Complain About Something They Love, Star Wars.
This is the problem when you came out with a movie series, and the 4-year-olds to 6-year-olds that saw it in 1977 are now 50 something year olds or 50-year-olds
Yep.
complaining about it because it didn't meet their
Well,
expectations as
in
it did when they were 4.
I
So,
think there's truth to that.
yeah.
Uh, at the same time, because I enjoy watching all of them, but at the
Mhm.
same time, I think they really did goof up. There was a massively missed opportunity with the sequel trilogy. They, there was so much,
Oh,
there's so much
I'm
material
gonna
out
make
there.
it explicit right now. They screwed the pooch on it. That's what they did. I remember going to see Rise of Skywalker with all of us. And we took
Yeah,
my son who
yeah,
was,
right, yeah. The
2015 and
the
that, so
film
he
that was
was,
really two and a half films.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And, um,
beautifully
The Force
done.
Awakens. It was the
Oh,
Force
I was gonna say
Awakens in
for
2015.
yeah. Again, I
Yeah,
enjoyed them all.
yeah. I just remember seeing The Last Jedi and coming out of that and going, I don't know what they were thinking. It was a
I
good
really
movie, but
enjoyed right. They're all good movies, but they okay, well just we got to stop
I
because like you're
I
gonna get me on Palpatine
they're
and
yeah,
oh
I
man,
know.
no.
They're on TV now because of the holidays, and I
Oh,
watch them and I still like them.
cool.
I will watch them on the TV.
I think I've agreed with my nephews over winter break that we're going to marathon some of them. I'm
Okay.
I'm I'm starting to I'm starting to really I'm getting in the mood to watch some Star Wars, right? But to your point, the the whole franchise, its strength, with very few exceptions, is not depth of character
No,
or
it's
thickness of plot. It's scope, its concept, its visuals, its action, its feeling, right? It's a different, it's more
this is
ecstatic,
not
less cerebral.
this is not Star Trek.
And, right, different magisteria. They each do
Yes.
their own thing very, very well. Kind of like like it just it's hard to make great Star Trek films. It's
Mhm.
hard to make great Star Wars series.
Just the
That's
same
just how it
way,
is.
just the same way that there are some people out there that actually have the gall to believe that the remake Battlestar Galactica is better than the original.
And on that note,
It was way
yes,
that
yeah, they can't see
you
your
couldn't see
look.
you couldn't
Yeah.
see the smile at the end of my
Yes.
because Jason
I'm gonna
I
drop that hook.
yeah I love the remake. Jason loved the remake. I watched the originals. I was a big
Oh
fan
yeah.
of those as a
Yeah.
kid. And I always goad him a little bit about it
Yeah.
because we've had long discussions about BSG. Not going to have it. Not going to happen here. I just did that
Yeah.
just to kind of see what his reaction would
All
be.
right, everybody. This has all happened before and it will happen again. You know.
Hopefully everybody had a good holiday.
Yeah, well, yeah, hopefully everybody had a good, whether it's Thanksgiving, fall break, whatever it is, hopefully you had some time off, some time with family, and hopefully you are looking forward to the upcoming, rapidly approaching winter holiday season. As always, we will be addressing mental health in the coming episodes. So, if you're in the northern climes like we are, as we record here, it's already gotten unseasonably cold, which I'm loving. Yep. You know the deal. Be well, stay well. We will see you in a couple of weeks.